Hello and welcome to lesson 11 of JavaScript. In this lesson, we are going to look at the methods that we use to iterate through arrays. My name is Mildred. In JavaScript, we have different methods that we use for different operations in arrays. First of all, if we have a string, let's say we have a string stored in a variable called x, and let's say this string holds a name. If we want to convert this string into an array, so every letter is going to be an element or an item in the array, we can use a method like this. So I'll write array dot from, and I'll put a pair of parentheses, and in that pair of parentheses the string comes in. And then when I save this, I try to print out x to the page. I'll have it as a comma separated list of the characters that make up the name. We have three arrays on the page. We have an array here that has an item repeating itself. So we have this array taking James, and we want to put another James here. If we want to search for the index of, let's say, the first occurrence of James, we use a method called index of. So I can say let x be equal to employees dot index of, and I want to get the index of James like this. And then when I print this out, I want to print that out to the page. I have an element called output, and I want to print out x to the page. When I save this and I refresh, I'm going to have the index of James is at index 1. Now remember that array indexing starts from 0. So John is at 0, James is at 1. But we have two occurrences of James. If we want to look for the last index in the event where we have an item occurring more than once in an array, we'll use last index of like this. When I refresh this, I'll get my last index to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Will be 4 this time because I have changed the method to use the last index of method instead. We have looked at the different methods to iterate through the elements of an array when the order is important. We have another method called the for each method that we can use to iterate through elements, and this takes callback function. So you can either use the for each and create a function, or you go with using the for and the for of method that we discussed in the last lesson. So we have a for each, and what this does is, I'm going to rush over this, takes the function as its argument here. So you're going to do something like employees dot for each, and then the name of the function you are going to create that is going to loop over the values will come here. So this takes a callback function. We have the map method, and what we use the map method to do is to run a function on each item of the array. And let's say, for instance, we have something like we want to divide each item in this array by 2. We can use the map method to do that, and I'll show you how we can do this. Let's say we want to create a new array called, so I'm going to call this constant reduced numbers, and what this is going to be equal to will be even numbers dot map, and then in the parentheses I will supply a function. Now I want to create the function here. So let's say function, and the name of my function is reduce number. This function is going to take the item as the argument. What I want it to return is the item divided by 2. I'm going to put reduce number here, and then when I save this and I try to print reduced numbers to the page, I should have this array printed out, but everything divided by 2. So instead of having 2, 4, 6, 8, I will have 1, 2, then 3, just the way it is divided by 2. So I'll save this, refresh my page, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as I want it to be. So we use the map method to perform operation on each item in the array. Okay, let's say, for instance, I want to create an array of only odd numbers from this number array. I'm going to create a function called, let's say, odd numbers, and I'm going to pass the item. And how do we know if a number is an odd number? So we can use the definition that odd numbers are numbers that when you divide them by 2, you get a remainder, right? And even numbers are divisible by 2 without remainders. And so what I want to do here is to say if the item modulo 2 is not equal to 0, so if there's a remainder when you divide that item by 2. Now remember that we say we use the modulo operator to return the remainder of a division. So if this divided by 2 is not equal to 0, we want to return the item. Now we have not done conditional statements, but I'm using the if statement for you to see how it is used. So I've created a function, and it's saying that if this item have a remainder, return the item, which means that the item is an odd number. And what I'll do here is to write numbers, because I'm using the numbers array. So I'll say numbers dot, and I'm going to be using a method called the filter method like this, and I'm going to call my function odd number. When I save this and I refresh, if all is well, this number array should give us, instead of having 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, we're going to have just the odd number 1 3 5 7 9. When I refresh, I have just the odd numbers out of the array. So we have another method called the every method, written every like this, and what we use this every to do is to check if every number in this array of numbers is an odd number. It is going to return false, because we have both odd and even number in the numbers array. So if I print out, let's change this to answer so we don't get confused, and I print out answer to the page, we are going to get false, because in the numbers array we have both even and odd numbers. So I'll refresh and I have false. I want to say sum. I'll use sum to say, okay, do we have some odd numbers? When I save and refresh, it will tell me true, because we have some odd numbers there. We also have methods to find the first array elements that passes a test. So we have looked for array elements that we use to filter, it passes a test, but we want to look at the first one. We want to just return the first one that passes the test. So let's say we want to get, for instance, let's find the first odd number. We're going to do it like this: numbers.find odd numbers. So it's going to check here and return the first odd number. Let's use the even number like this, and it's not going to return anything because we do not have any odd number in the even numbers array. So when I save this and I refresh, we're going to get undefined because there is nothing. But if I change this to use the numbers array, it's going to return 1, because 1 is the first odd. Let me remove 1 and let's see, 3 becomes the first odd number here. When I save and I refresh, then I'll have 3 here as the first odd number on the page. If I want to find the index of that item that passes the test, I'll say find index like this. And so instead of returning 3, it's going to tell me it's an index 1. So when I save this and I refresh, I'm going to get the index of 1. So these are the array methods that we have. These are the kind of things that you need to actually understand and have it in your head that this method exists. So when you have to solve a problem in your software development, you know that when I get all this input from the user, maybe for instance I want to select all the users whose date of birth puts them at age 18 or below, or all the users whose date of birth put them above 18, or you want to group users by age group. These are the kind of method you can use when you return those values. There are other things we can do with this. There are several things we can do. When you start creating charts and graphs, you want to do visualizations, the method also come in handy. And so this is where we are going to end this lesson. This is all about arrays in JavaScript. In the next lesson, we are going to look at dates and date methods. Thank you and see you in the next lesson.